So what I'm doing today is installing some recessed can lighting in this room. So we have no lights in the ceiling whatsoever. This room stays pretty dark. The only thing we have is this switch here is connected to those lamps. So I'm gonna install 6 can lights. Do one there, 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 one here, and one there. So I will kind of go through the basics of this. I've never done it before, but it shouldn't be too hard if you could do some simple wiring. I'll show you what I bought to help make this go a little easier. So what I've got here is some 14-2 normal wiring. That should be plenty for these lights. I bought this thing, which is an adjustable bit that will do anything from a 2.5-inch circle to a 7-inch. And I believe these are 6 3/8, maybe is the whole size for that, but it's got this nice cup type thing that is supposed to catch a bunch of the debris as you cut it, minimize the mess. But that thing was 25 bucks. I've got a dimmer switch. I'm gonna run mine on a dimmer, so be sure to get your dimmer. This one says it's dimmable for LEDs and CFLs. They do make these that only do incandescent supposedly, but that was 20 bucks. The incandescent version was 15. I decided I'm gonna do LED, so for mine, for LEDs, you actually get this all-in-one type deal that's got your bezel surrounding and everything all in one. You can actually use these with an adapter for the old type. If you're turning an older fixture into LED, you can use these. But anyway, if you don't do LED, you may have to buy the actual light bulb itself separately and the bezel that goes around it separately. But that's 25 bucks for 4 of those. I'll have to pick up 2 more. And then the fixture itself, this is a remodel fixture since I'm cutting a hole in an existing ceiling. And then this is a deep one, which they make these in a deep or shallow. Where you would want to use that is I will have a couple of these that will go out here towards the outside edge where my roof pitch comes down pretty low. I have to climb in the attic and see if I've got enough room for that can to sit in there. And if I don't, on these outer edges, I'll have to buy a shallow fixture. But you're looking at $10 a piece for this type, or I think it's about 12 or 15 for the shallow type if you've got to get some of those. But it has its own little junction box where you can wire everything together inside of there. Nice little neat package. So the other thing to look for on these is they have them in IC or non-IC, which basically that means if it's an IC compatible, that means you can put insulation right up next to this thing, touching it, I believe, where it's not going to get hot and be a fire hazard. Your non-IC, you have to have so much room around it to make sure you're not going to have a fire hazard there. I'm going to crawl up in the attic and make sure I've got enough room to fit that guy down toward the edges of my roof peaks. I will have to go grab more of those and then grab the shallow ones if those are necessary for my application. I'm also going to run all of this. This is an existing switch for those lamps, which I'm going to wire those outlets that go to those lamps. I will wire those to be hot continuously. Eventually, we are going to add a ceiling fan in the middle of this room. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a double gang switch box to install here. Just go ahead and get that set up so when I do install the fan, all I have to do is run wiring down. But I'm going to have my new can lights are going to be on a dimmer switch, and then I'll have just a normal on and off switch for my ceiling fan when I install that later. Okay, so what I've done is all of these fixtures come with this template, which gives you your size. I've just kind of gone around the room. I've taken a magnetic stud finder that just finds the nails in the sheetrock into the studs, which I think is the most simplest and easiest stud finder. I've taken those and marked where my studs are. Now I've gone around the room. I've measured 3 feet off of the exterior walls. I just figured that would be a good placement for my cans. I centered mine above the fireplace, ran one straight across from it, and then 3 foot off of that exterior wall. And if you can see, I've used the template to go ahead and draw my circles. And that's what I've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Typically, from what I've seen online, the rule of thumb is if you've got an 8-foot ceiling, you want your can lights about 4 feet apart. If you've got a 10-foot ceiling, you want them about 5 feet apart. I've got an 8-foot ceiling and I've set them about 5 foot apart. I'm more concerned with having the placement in the room look right than I am having everything exactly the way it should be as far as the lights being apart from each other. Any amount of light we can add in here is going to be super helpful. So that's what I've done. The next step is I'm going to set my bit to the right diameter to match the template, and I think I'll start drilling some holes. So I'm up in my attic. The one thing I did, I had just recently ran this new circuit for this new duct with an inline duct fan to pull heat from the room where my wood stove is into my living room. So I had this outlet for that to plug into. I tapped into that circuit. So basically you can see my wiring running over here, and it goes down my wall to my switch. And then these wire together, super simple. So I wanted to make a couple notes on safety here. The outlet where I ran this wiring from is 12 gauge, and I just ran this 14 gauge white wire to these because they're not pulling many amps. But on this circuit, I am using a 15 amp breaker. If you are running 12 gauge wire all the way to all your fixtures from that circuit, you'll want a 20 amp breaker. But if you're running 14 gauge like I am here to my lights, you definitely want to stick with a 15 amp breaker just to be safe. So another note here, if you guys are using these types of push connectors, I just wanted to let you know, if you ever do make a mistake or you need to reuse these, you can easily take these back out. They hold really tight, but the trick is if you just twist and pull, they will come right back out. So now what we need to do, we need to pop these little things out to run our wires through. These particular ones are kind of a booger because this is so flimsy, and these are in so good. I found the easiest way is rock it back and forth enough to get one side to stick up, get some needle nose pliers in there, bend it up like that, and then I'm just going to rock this back and forth, and it breaks right off. So then you'll want to go out and pick you up
It's a 1/2 inch knockout hole to a 3/8. I got these from Lowe's, part number 49650. It's just a little metal grommet. What you want to do, stick this in, you'll thread that ring from the bottom side. What that's going to do is hold our wiring safely inside, gives it a nice smooth surface to go to, and then these lock down so nothing can slip out. Now we're just going to stick our wires down through the grommet, give ourselves enough room to work over here. Grab my other one that comes in from this side. Then you want to go ahead and tighten these down pretty snug on those wires so they can't move or slip out or anything. And I am no electrician, so I'm doing this DIY as a homeowner. I do suggest you talk to someone about your local codes, or actually at least talk to an electrician or have an electrician help you with this job. Now all we need to do is take our black off the light, push in our black from one wire, our black from the other, take our white from the light, push in our white from one wire, white from the other wire. And it is kind of important to only take back your sheathing back as far to where nothing's exposed underneath that connector. Then we're going to take our ground from the light, and we'll do ground from one wire, ground from the other wire. Now, I do recommend going ahead and wrapping these in electrical tape as well, just to give it an extra safety so nothing can work its way back out. Now we just want to push everything back into the box safely. Make sure there's no insulation in there with it, so there's no fire safety hazard there. And now we just take our cover, snap it on like so, and I'm going to call down to my wife downstairs, have her kick the breaker back on just to check and make sure everything's good. So these have these adapters that can screw into your normal socket. So depending on what type of cans you have, you'll either use that adapter or they may just plug in directly with this little plug. Up in here, basically, you've got these little clips that when you push this can up into place, those clip over your sheetrock like that. All this just kind of fits up in here. And what wasn't so obvious to me is these have these little clips. These little clippers go up in between these two deals. So as you squeeze these, you kind of just place them in between there, like so. There we go. And you do that on each side. And then once you've got those in, this whole thing will just push right up in there and kind of hold in place. So I just wanted to make a little segment talking about this thing, the adjustable quick cutter hole saw. I bought this at Menards. I really do not recommend this. As you can probably see from the video, yesterday when I was trying to cut with it, the first hole went okay. It's supposed to keep from making a mess. You kind of put this bucket underneath it as you cut, and it's supposed to catch stuff. Still made a mess. And then it seemed like after the first hole I cut, the thing was just like completely dull or something. It was terrible. I had to cut 6 holes. The first one went pretty well. The other 5 were just terrible. I'm gonna return it. It's 25 bucks. Really do not recommend that. Get yourself a normal size hole saw. The other problem with it is it's extremely hard to adjust the arms in and out to get the exact size circle that you want. And what I found out was, you know, your hole that you cut in your ceiling has to be almost exact, or else your cans, your fixtures will not have anything to grab onto. So
ended up wallering out my hole. The longer it takes you to cut it, your center hole that your drill bit holds the thing in place will start wallering out, and your hole gradually gets bigger and bigger. So several of my can holes ended up being too big, and it was an absolute nightmare. So I'm going to return that thing. So this is the result. I think it turned out pretty good. I've got these. This will be for installing a ceiling fan later. It's not doing anything. This, I've got these on a dimmer. So I can flip these things on. And they are extremely bright. I probably could have gotten away with 4 of these in this room. I run them down about halfway on the dimmer. If you do get a dimmer, just make sure you get a dimmer that is specifically for LED and CFL if you do use LED lights. If not, the incandescent ones should work. I don't really know the difference, I just follow the directions. Pardon the movie that my son's watching in the background.